So I'm going to start off with one of the sort of cool demo features. It demos really well, so we're going to show you how they demo it. It's the content aware fill. So I'm going to open an image here, and you know, this is always very fun to demo because it seems like so magical, right? You make a selection. I want to remove this guy from this background because I want to use it for something else, right? So I just make kind of a loose selection around him. And we go fill, edit, fill, and then just select content aware. Make sure instead of foreground color or background color, you select content aware. And now, sort of magically, Photoshop looks at the area all the way around and replaces what's inside with the material from the outside, and it all lines up, and it's really cool, right? So the demo, everyone goes, ooh, ah, well, okay. This demo's really well on very specific kinds of subjects. It's not always that useful. And what's interesting is that on the types of subjects that the content-aware fill demos really well at, you can kind of use an old school method of achieving similar results. So here's the old school method, pre-content-aware fill. Does anyone have something besides CS5? A few people have CS4, right? Maybe anyone with CS3 in there? This works, what I'm going to show you works back to like Photoshop 6. It's really easy, or actually before. So you take a selection and you just drag it off to some appropriately similar area, and then Command or Control J floats that selection into an empty layer. And now I could just get the move tool and move it back and cover him up, comme ça. And all I have to do is kind of clone around the seams here, and I'm done. So this content-aware fill is actually a very useful tool, but it's not really that useful the way it's demoed. So I'm going to show you how to really make it work for you, because you'll find many situations where it doesn't work. So let's go in and find you know, here's a class of image situation where you'd really want content-aware fill to work properly. So I'm going to open this image. And okay, so we have this group shot. These guys are all musicians. And then let's just say, hypothetically, that the gentleman on the left, there was a contract dispute, so the album company said, you're not going to be on the album, and they want his picture removed from the only group shot of these people, right? So what you'd want to be able to use content-aware fill to get rid of this guy, right? So let's first make a selection, and I'm going to use the Quick Select tool. So over here, it's sort of largely replacing the Magic Wand tool. So you'll find it where the Magic Wand tool is, and you select Quick Selection tool. And this tool makes it sort of easy work of selecting items. So you really just sort of drag near the edge, and it's much better at like snapping to the edge and finding the object that you want to select. Okay, so now it's selected everything, but it's also included this the edge of the door here. So it's a selection tool, and the keyboard shortcuts for removing or subtracting from a selection is the Option or Alt key. So we hold that down and drag in the area that we want to subtract from the selection. And then if you want to add to the selection, so I want to add this hand, right? To add, you hold down the Shift key and drag over the object that you want to add here. Okay? So All right, so the idea is we want to use the content aware fill. So I go edit, fill, content aware, and I really want the background to just come in and replace this guy, and so that I can be done, right? And any guesses what's really going to happen here? You all tried this, right? I mean, everybody you go, you take the content aware fill, and you go, okay, fill magically. Oh, that looks like, that's terrible. And you just have to sort of think about, what is Photoshop really doing? Photoshop's looking all the way around this figure, and due to the size of the selection, it has to look out at least as big as the selection. So what it does is it's like randomly pulling parts of the background and putting it in. It doesn't know that there's a guy standing next to the selection that you don't want, right? So it puts it, and obviously that's not very useful. So I'm going to show you how to trick content aware fill to use just the part of the image that you want it to use to fill in that area, okay? So I'm going to, just to save a little bit of work, I'm going to save this selection, and we'll just save it in a new channel. And so first step is to try and isolate the thing that you want to be considered for the content aware fill. So I'm going to just grab this whole side of the image here and float it in a layer. So Command or Control J, and now I've got this thing in sort of floating in an empty layer here. So now the trick is I want to subtract the things that I don't want considered for content aware fill. So I don't want to use this guy here. So I'm going to just make a selection here around him and delete. Okay, and we'll delete this little piece here. So I'm just hitting the delete key. I make a selection, I hit the delete key. And since it's an empty layer, it just deletes to empty, to transparency. Okay, I don't want this door jamb considered, so I'm going to delete that. So really the only thing I want is this wood paneling up here. I want that to be kind of go in, and I'm going to go ahead and have it replace everything. Okay, so let me get started. I'll load my selection. So select, load selection. I can select now, instead of the layer transparency, I want that alpha channel. That's the selection I saved before. It's a new channel. And so now he's selected. And now I just want to add to the selection to add this background into it. So holding down the Shift key, I click and add all this extra stuff to the selection. Okay. Now we're going to do content aware fill. But see, the only thing that's left in this layer that's not selected for replacement is this wood paneling. So let's do edit, fill, content aware. And now we wait. And Photoshop's looking all around, but the only thing it can find in that layer is this wood paneling. So now it has to use that to fill in. Let it do its calculation. This is a full-size image, and running on a laptop. Your results may vary, but should be faster than this. Okay. All right, so like not horrible, but I got to fix little edges and things like that. But now at least I have plenty of stuff to clone from. So if I take the rubber stamp tool, I can pretty easily fix edges and things. Okay, and now here's a little tip. Okay, this is one of those extra little techniques that you should be aware of. Here's a situation where I want to clone out right to the edge of everything that's not transparent, but I don't want to clone into the transparent area. Okay, so you could get really your brush really small and be very careful, or over here in the layers panel, let's go over here. There's a little row of icons here, right? These are the lock icons. So if I lock down the transparency, saw that. Okay. Now, when I paint with anything, and in this case I'm cloning, I can clone right to the edge, and it's locked the transparency, so it can't clone over that edge, right? So that just makes it much easier to repair the areas that you need to fix here. Make sense? Okay, now I could do a better job and kind of like work this a little more, but I don't really think it's necessary here, and it gives you the idea. So now you see we've replaced that guy and saved a lot of kind of cloning work, because really the patch of paneling was so small it would have been really difficult to kind of hand clone that out over everything. Now, instead of just stopping here, I'm actually going to finish this image off and show you a couple of other interesting techniques that you can use. I want to affect the lighting of this area. This wood paneling here is too bright, and it's taking your eye away from the three figures. And we're going to use it for text in a minute. But let's first create some shading here. So I'm going to use the gradient tool. And if you Option or Alt click in the image, you can select a color from the image. So now I've put this dark brown in the foreground here. I'm going to make a new layer here. And this is going to be a shadow. Okay, so here's my cloning. I'll change the shadow layer from normal to multiply. So I have my gradient tool here. The trick to this technique is you change the opacity of the gradient to something less than 100%, and I'm going to go kind of around 30% or so. So I'm going to use the gradient in the foreground to transparent mode. So I select foreground to transparent, and now I just sort of click and drag into the image, and it's sort of like dodging and burning in the enlarger, for those of you that remember those days. You can just sort of build up the edge burning effect here. And let's get a little more here. And if it needed to be darker, you could use black, but I was using brown because it's the same color as the wood, and it helps to keep it looking realistic. I'll do one more here just to darken that down. Okay, so now I've got a little more sort of realistic looking lighting, and we'll do one last thing to finish this off. We're going to make a kind of an album cover here. So we'll use the text tool. How many people ever use the text tool? Anyone? You guys, so you all know how this works, right? Okay, the other class didn't. So we'll give our album cover a title, and we'll call it Three Cool Guys, because the fourth guy got aced, right? And if you hold down the Command or Control key while you have the type live, you get the free transform handles, and you can kind of resize the type. Right, so I can I can kind of skew it and do all kinds of stuff because it's really the free transform command. Okay. And all right, good enough. The other thing maybe you've used or you haven't used it, but this little effects thing here in the bottom of the layers panel, the FX, if you click on that, we can add a layer style. So in this case, I'm going to do a drop shadow. And another thing that many people don't know is once this layer style dialog is open, I don't have to try and adjust the drop shadow this way, or at least the position. I can click in the image and drag the drop shadow wherever I want. Okay, and then the size slider controls the blurriness of the, I don't know why they call it size, they should just call it blur, but they don't. So we'll give it a nice full drop shadow. And the reason for using these layer styles instead of actually creating the drop shadow layer is so that we can edit this. So if I want to select a different type, you know, I can just pick anything else, and it updates automatically. Okay, so now we're sort of done. We've got our taking our fourth guy out, and let's move on.